Theology is hard. Theology is hard because once you realize how much greater God is, that than which nothing greater can be conceived in the Anselmian ways of saying it, you realize how much harder God is to talk about. The problem cannot be overcome simply by studying theology books and learning some new, more technical vocabulary. Most readers will, in fact, pick up a few helpful new words from this book, since words like aseity are not exactly household words, and words like simplicity have a special meaning in theology. But picking up those terms and using them to say more of the right things about God is not enough. These words and concepts of the classical Christian doctrine of God are just markers along the way to reversing some deep-seated habits of thought. Those habits of thought mostly start out with a sentiment like, "If I were God." We are easily lulled into a style of theology that starts from ourselves and imagines some ways in which God must be like that, but bigger and better. I feel sad when I am rejected, so God must feel even more rejected, but without acting out because of it. I need to be loved, so God must need to be loved even more, but also somehow He must be able to accept when He isn't. It's possible to take statements like these and nuance them enough, or hedge them with some biblical principles, or rule out gross errors, so that we end up with a decent theology of a respectable God. But there is an underlying problem that will keep generating errors every time we let down our guard. The underlying problem is a theological style that, even in its reading of Scripture, works up from us to God. With none greater, Barrett is determined to reverse that direction. He has learned that the proper path of theology is to follow the revelation of God from above to below instead, and he wants to bring listeners along with him on this journey. It requires some truly counterintuitive moves, because we really have to get outside of ourselves to hear the message of God's perfection and blessedness. And it requires us to pay more attention to some of the major theological witnesses of the great tradition of Christian thought than we may be accustomed to. That's because many of these older voices, Athanasius with his shocked reaction to Arianism, Augustine with his autobiographical confessions, Anselm with his book-length meditative prayer, also wrote as pilgrims who had been surprised by the godness of God. So there is plenty of company on the journey that Barrett invites listeners to join him on. What matters most, though, is to start the journey. What matters is to join the company of those who are permanently shocked by the sheer godness of the God we thought we knew. Fred Sanders, Professor of Theology, Torrey Honors Institute, Biola University. Preface. Fill the house. For my own part, I tend to find the doctrinal books often more helpful in devotion than the devotional books, and I rather suspect that the same experience may await many others. I believe that many who find that nothing happens when they sit down or kneel down to a book of devotion would find that the heart sings unbidden while they are working their way through a tough bit of theology with a pipe in their teeth and a pencil in their hand. C.S. Lewis on the reading of old books. I have often lamented that there are very few books on the attributes of God written for those in the church in a style that is clear and accessible, yet uncompromising and rigorous. While stacks of books invite the scholarly student to pick up and read, the churchgoer has little opportunity to dive headfirst into the deep things of God. Sadly, they turn to popular devotional literature to feed a spiritual hunger that only theology can satisfy. Is it any wonder that our churches have a big heart for ministry